For centuries, Native American stories have been filtered through the lens of outsiders, explorers, historians, and, more recently, non-native writers and filmmakers. While some argue that storytelling is universal and anyone should be able to write about Native experiences, others insist that only indigenous voices can accurately and respectfully tell these stories. So, should non-native writers be allowed to tell Native stories, or does this contribute to cultural erasure? One of the biggest concerns is misrepresentation. Historically, non-native writers have shaped harmful stereotypes of indigenous people, whether as mystical shamans, noble savages, or tragic relics of the past. Many famous books and films, such as The Last of the Mohicans and Dances with Wolves, center non-native characters while reducing native people to sidekicks or symbols of a dying culture. As Cherokee writer Rebecca Nagler puts it, when non-natives tell our stories, they often get it wrong. And getting it wrong has real-world consequences. Another issue is that native writers have historically been excluded from publishing and filmmaking. For years, indigenous authors struggled to find publishers willing to take on their work, while non-native writers profited from romanticized or inaccurate portrayal. Some critics argue that when non-natives tell these stories, they continue to take up space that should belong to native voices. On the other hand, some argue that non-native writers can tell native stories if they do it with deep research, cultural sensitivity, and collaboration with indigenous communities. Some non-native authors have worked closely with native consultants to ensure respectful representation. However, even this approach is controversial. Some native scholars argue that consultation alone is not enough if the storyteller does not come from the community itself. Ultimately, the question is not just about who can tell native stories, but who should. Native communities have fought for centuries to reclaim their own narratives, and true representation means making space for indigenous voices, rather than allowing outsiders to dominate their stories once again. So, should native stories be told by non-native writers? Or is it time for the publishing and film industries to finally prioritize native storytellers? What do you think? Let's continue the conversation.